Well folks, today we're taking a look at the Hokusai swimsuit figure by Good Smile Company, another figure that I was eagerly awaiting to see in person. And we're going to get to why in a second, but when it comes to Hokusai and her scale figures, you actually have a lot of options out there for you. And I think the common question out there right now is which figure is her best? Now, a couple months back, we took a look at Phat Company's Hokusai, which is a great figure and gets my recommendation, but in the back of my head, I always had a little bit more faith in the Swimsuit Hokusai. Why? Well, look at her. This is one killer design for a figure, and I personally believe that Good Smile Company is just a better manufacturer overall. So I think at some point in this video, I'll do a quick rundown comparing the two and give you my honest opinion on which one I like more. But for now, let's focus on Swimsuit Hokusai, as that's likely why you're here. When I think of swimsuit figures, I'm thinking bikini, maybe a beach ball, perhaps a sandy base with some waves. Usually there's not much room for creativity, so I often just judge them by their attractiveness. But in this case, calling this a swimsuit figure is almost a disservice to the sculpt. I mean, it is a swimsuit figure. She's got a fairly simple white bikini on that highlights her curves a bit, some fun accessories like the goggles in her hair, all the wristbands around her arms, and the seashell-like accessory around her waist. Even Totosama is getting into the spirit of things, but this figure is so much more than that, sporting a rather impressive amount of sashes and fabrics with their own unique patterns, and not one, not two, but 4 lengthy katanas in their sheaths just to make sure she's battle ready. It's a spectacle for the eyes, truly, and because extra care was put into Hokusai herself, I wouldn't even say that the chaotic mess of plastic steals the show. She's still the focal point, and everything else just enhances her. It's uniquely stylish due to the perfect combination of colors and decorative patterns, while also blending old and new themes together. But before I continue, can I just say that assembling this figure sorta sucks? It's not that bad. She slots into the base smoothly, and Totosama along with her long hair bits plug in with relative ease, but the gigantic chunk of sashes and katanas leans a bit on the troublesome side. It's impressive how this is one singular piece, and I'm not really sure I'd want it broken down into multiple parts, but I did struggle a little bit. Apologies for not filming this perfectly, but essentially after you attach her brush set, you need to align the pegs to her leg while also making sure that you get this little bit of fabric to rest between the paint brushes and her thigh. Then it's a matter of actually being able to push the 2 pegs in simultaneously, which is easier said than done because you don't really have the most solid grip here, and the brush pouch is very fragile. Truthfully, I only have these plugged in 90% of the way because it's pretty tough, and unfortunately I'm gonna have to pack this away anyway, so I don't really want to stress it out too much, but it does still feel solid and secure, which I think is the most important part. Alright, so back to Hokusai. I want to talk about her body sculpt next, or I guess just her character as a whole. As you'd expect, the shading on her skin is flawless. She's got a healthy looking complexion, not too pale. Body definition is also expertly done. She's fairly slender. Areas like her knees and armpits are well detailed. Chest looks great, and you get some subtle under boob and side boob depending on where you look. But if I can point out some other details really quick, I think the one part of my luxury Hokusai review that I regret not talking about more was her fingers. They were oddly stubby and frankly unflattering, which is made only more apparent when you compare them with this Hokusai. Her fingers are nice and slim on the swimsuit version, and I like how she's posed up with her hands behind her head here. The other thing of note are her legs and feet, because she's wearing these really unique heels. Actually, these don't have heels. I don't know what you would call these, but because they're forcing her on her tippy toes essentially, they give her legs a longer, more attractive look, on top of the fact that I just think they did an above average job with the sculpting of her feet as well. Hokusai's face is just gorgeous on this figure. Absolutely beautiful eyes, and her pursed lips highlight just how pretty she actually is. Her hair is done up in a way that feels slightly more tropical while not departing very far at all from the original design. The extra care put into the sculpt to highlight more strands of her hair is really appreciated, and the flower accessories are a defining trait of her look that just enhances her cuteness. As far as the purple flowers go, I would say there's a very subtle difference between the shades of purple here compared to her hair that helps them stand out just a bit more than the luxury version's attempt at this. Now as for the sculpt for all the fabrics, these are really impressive, intertwining with each other, hugging around Hokusai's body, and also trailing off in their own direction, creasing and folding naturally along their path. This is the kind of figure you'll want to view from the back from time to time just to appreciate the work that was put into this piece. The sheer size of it all leaves you feeling like your money was well spent in this hobby for once, but I think what really brings it all home are the medley of colors on them and the figure as a whole. There's at least 7 different patterns I counted, and none of them clash with Hokusai or the rest of the fabrics. All the paint and shading on this figure are perfect, and the printing technique for the fabrics are extremely clean. She's just really pleasing to the eyes as a whole. Likewise, the swords jutting out from random spots feels appropriately disorderly to me. I like their placements, they feel very deliberate. One of them is covered in stickers and kind of reminds me of Splatoon, if you've ever played that. It just kind of has that vibe to me. Totosama, by the way, is really cute here. He's also quite a bit bigger, which gives him more of a presence on this figure as a whole. His paint job is super clean, and the gold pattern on his tentacles just shines really brightly and it looks beautiful. His little suction cups are more defined than I would have expected here too. He's just a really nice addition to this figure. Oh, and the base for this Hokusai is really good too. It's a hefty, clear base with some beautiful artwork printed inside, and all the colors throughout it are soft pastels. I kind of think it's perfect for what it is. The only quality control issue I found on this figure is actually on one of her katanas, specifically the sheath that's covered in stickers. From my understanding, this is basically one big decal sheet that wraps around the sheath, but at the very bottom on mine, you can tell that the application was rushed or damaged slightly, so the clear film is a bit wrinkly as a result. It's very minor, and I think if I really wanted to, I could just clean this up by like cutting it off very carefully, but I'm not gonna do that. But other than that, I'm really impressed at how spotless this figure is. Alright, so let's bring out Luxury Hokusai now, because I think a lot of people might be shocked to see the size comparison for these two, considering they're both labeled as 1/7 scales. I'm not sure if Luxury Hokusai is too big or Swimsuit Hokusai is too small, but I think I'm leaning towards the swimsuit version being a tad on the smaller side than expected. Now on her own, I think Swimsuit Hokusai is perfectly fine, but your mileage is gonna vary depending on who you plan to set her up with. But that does help segue into which figure I prefer more. Luxury Hokusai's size and the wave that accompanies her simply gives her a shelf presence that's really hard to rival. The uniqueness of the wave is also just not something you often see in figures, making for one hell of a backdrop for her, and while I don't think the paint job overall is an A+, as the shading leaves a bit to be desired, it's hard to deny from the normal viewing distances you're gonna see her at that she looks fantastic. Swimsuit Hokusai, on the other hand, still grabs your attention, don't get me wrong, there's just too much going on this figure for it to not, but it's really all about the details on this one. While Luxury Hokusai is a bit more elegant and mature looking, Swimsuit Hokusai is louder and more trendy. The mix of patterns and colors just speaks to me. The stylistic blend of traditional and modern throughout it is brought to life in such a fun way. The paint and detailing are a step above Phat Company's attempt, and might I remind you that this is all happening on a swimsuit figure of all things. Personally, I think one of the biggest advantages the swimsuit figure has is her face. I just think it clears Phat Company's attempts. Her eyes are much more striking, her lips are more defined, and her hair is a bit prettier. Despite being the same character though, these are clearly very different figures. Elements such as the birds that circle all around Luxury Hokusai or her paintbrush are great and have this sense of traditionalism that you simply aren't getting on the swimsuit version, but the creative nature of Swimsuit Hokusai just steals the show for me. While I don't normally worry too much about the bases on these figures, Swimsuit Hokusai actually enhances her figures thanks to the colors and the gorgeous artwork, whereas the paint splatter effect on Luxury Hokusai is a neat idea, but the blank surface area towards the back leaves a little bit to be desired. Totosama is also integrated much more elegantly on the swimsuit version, and his figure is much more detailed and larger on top of that. I never had a problem with the original Totosama figure, but the suggestion of a giant acrylic rod is a bit disappointing. He's still a cute little fella, and he's got a glossy finish to him, which might actually be more appropriate, but I just feel like he's far more interesting on the new sculpt. So ultimately, I find Good Smiles Hokusai to be the more attractive figure. While the size difference is a bit strange, the design of this figure is exceptional to the point where I don't really mind it. It also helps that this was a cheaper figure that had a smaller box as well, making the decision more economic as well. Phat Company's Hokusai is still a great figure, and it's so radically different that owning both is a completely valid option if you find yourself liking both equally. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you think about her down below in the comments, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm planning to do another haul video in the near future, so look forward to that, hopefully soon, but until then, I'll just see you around. Later.